Hey guys, it's Ethan, Scotty, if you know me by that. That's pretty cool. So today I'm going to talk about the mythological perspective, kind of on the Avatar: Last Airbender and also the Legend of Korra. So these shows are based around the Avatar, and they know four elements, and those elements are fire, water, earth, and air. And in these, they also have some sub elements where, so with as an earthbender, you can know fire, or not fire, sorry, you can know lava bending as a firebender. You can know lightning as a little extension of it. Wirebender, you can know a darker one, which is known as blood bending, where you control somebody because of the wire that runs through the body. Another one for like airbending, you could suffocate somebody. And so in the show, for Avatar: Last Airbender, you watch Aang as he progresses and tries to defeat the Fire Lord. And in that, he's trying to learn all three other elements because he's good with like air and spirit wise. But also in that, you also see that when he's learning these like elements, he gets friends along the way in order to help like teach him. Like Katara teaches him water bending, Toph teaches him earth bending. And I might have, like, as an earthbender, you could also learn metal bending is another extension of a sub-element power, I guess. But in Legend of Korra, it's kind of the complete opposite, where instead of having one big bad enemy like Aang does against the Fire Lord and more of the Fire Nation, that she goes against some mini like villains like Amon, who's actually like Noatak, like a waterbender who like can really good bloodbend, where at that point he can bloodbend without a full moon, which typically in the previous show you have to have a full moon. She goes against her uncle. She goes against somebody who's trying to like help grow the Earth Kingdom from when it got destroyed when the Red Lotus in that show, who's opposite of the White Lotus, killed the Earth Queen. So in this, she also has to learn kind of opposite of what Aang has to learn to be a little bit more not so irrational and kind of rationale what you're thinking, and also learn the airbending and the spirit side of what you gotta learn for being an avatar. So some stories I kind of like got adapted from another mythology to what the like shows have. One example would be Azula, who's like daughter of the Fire Lord in Avatar: Last Airbender. So it's kind of similar to like the Trojan War, where she invades Ba Sing Se, where Ba Sing Se is like Troy, where it's just this big bill or like wall, like it has two walls, like an inner ring and an outer ring. Kind of has its like class separation too, of how lower class is going to be on the outer ring, and it's kind of treated like crap. But what she does is she dresses up as Kyoshi warrior, and Kyoshi is like a previous avatar, an earthbending avatar originally. And when like she does that, she invades Ba Sing Se and controls it in the name of the Fire Lord. So this is kind of like that Trojan horse, where she sneaks in undetected by anyone in the Avatar gang, and where then she invades and conquers Ba Sing Se for the Fire Nation. Another thing is with the first original Avatar that you find in or learn about in The Legend of Korra, and this is also based on the show. I did not read much of the comics, so just keep that in mind. Where the lion turtle in that gives fire to Avatar Wan before he's actually really an avatar, because he wants to like kind of keep like the fire bending for himself for his own selfish purposes. But this is like Prometheus giving fire to humans in Greek mythology, where this also kind of in a way releases chaos and evil like Pandora's box. But then you find where Wan tries to do good on learning firebending to protect the spirits in the spirit wilds, because that's why you're given bending. It's for in the spirit wilds, it helps to defend you and also to get what you want to hunt for. And Wan actually protects or saves on the spirit animals that then becomes his own companion. It's like a mountain lion mixed with like, it has like antlers, so a mountain lion and deer, something like that. And this also kind of considers the concept that I'll talk a bit later about like friends transcend a lifetime. But in that, it's kind of like combined Pandora and Prometheus in the Greek mythology. The other thing is a struggle between Rava and Vatu, which are like a yin and yang spirit, and Rava is actually the like spirit that goes into like the avatar that helps them to reincarnate from one to the other, from like one going from like a firebender to an airbender, or wait, yeah, firebender, airbender is what it next goes to. Then it goes to a waterbender, and then it goes to an earthbender, and it goes in that continuous cycle. And like there's a struggle between Rava and Vatu where they kind of fight with each other, and one actually got involved in it, thinking he was saving Vatu because Vatu seemed like a guilty party, but he wasn't, and Rava was trying to get him, prevent him from causing any evil. And this is like the ancient Persian religion of Zoroastrianism, with the struggle between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. I know that well enough. And next I'm going to kind of talk about some of like the show mythologies. So some things that are interesting is like you see some what they have of like sacred people. So one example would be, I want to say it's called the Painted Lady, where Katara dresses up as a painted lady, but she didn't even know about the Painted Lady at first. She just wanted to help out this like little Fire Nation like island, and because it's like just polluted like waters because of the building of the Fire Nation is using to like take all their stuff, and they don't even have good enough food, and everyone gets sick. So she kind of fakes to be this like painted lady, and at the end of it, the Painted Lady actually comes to Katara and says thank you. Another thing is like the friendships transcend a lifetime. So Avatar Roku kind of helped to teach Aang of what he needed to know because he was frozen for almost 100 years. And Avatar Roku was friends with a monk named Monkyatsu. And that was kind of like the father figure, maybe assumed to be father of Aang, where it's crazy that you think, oh, well, that's actually his like friend. Avatar Roku is that like who like Aang learned from. And then the other thing that you learn too is in the Legend of Korra, of how Aang's friend Toph, who's blind, she can sense that like it's like twinkle toes is what she calls Aang, and she says that when she says Korra, because it keeps that idea of friendships transcend a lifetime. And there's even like archaeology stuff like so to prove that Kyoshi like split like an island to be like start the Kyoshi warriors, and she killed Cheng the Conqueror, is that there's like this footprint of his, and that Aang has to testify against that he's not like guilty of like killing Cheng the Conqueror, that was like the leader of that island. And when he does that, he kind of gets guilty, but it proves like that throughout that of how each like he's kind of guilty, but it proves like what happened is the other thing. And even like at one of the air temples is like one of the creatures you see, you can tell that they're a descendant of what used to live there and roam there. And then another thing is about a building of where it has all the avatars in it, so you can see all the cycle, and it kind of foreshadows of what's going to happen in Legend of Korra when you see it in Avatar: The Last Airbender, because what happens is it shows a spiral that kind of cuts off to show how Legend of Korra kind of loses her like connection with previous avatars. And the other thing is like you see how the previous avatar, the next avatar obviously has to deal with their stuff. So for Roku, he wasn't very aggressive in dealing with it, like the Fire Lord at that time, who essentially let him die. So that started the 100-Year War. But Aang also kind of avoided some of that because he got frozen, and it was the boy and the iceberg. And in that, then Legend of Korra has to deal with what Aang created, because when he made this like Republic City in the Earth Kingdom, well, that caused problems with the Earth Queen. Then there's some stuff that happened in there that Korra had to adjust with. Another thing in the Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I believe I guess some kind of do some like flashbacks to what happened in the show, that like you kind of got a misunderstanding of like this one character Jet, did he actually die? And like you see a flashback of like, oh my god, did he actually die? And they kind of address that, which is kind of interesting. But it's towards the end when they're in the Fire Nation is called the Ember Islands Players. And what that is about is the like playwriter for it, he asks people for the experience through what happened. So he writes out the story of what's up to date, but then he goes further to give his own perspective. That's for like the Fire Nation to say they won and they killed the Avatar, and like they're so successful and nobody can stop them. And it gives its own like spin off of like the way they're perceived it. Like you see with like Cinderella from like, I believe it's like the girl with the glass slipper or girl with the rose, how it like portrayed it is not exactly to the point of what it exactly was. It's kind of dramatized, where Aang's like a girl, he's not a girl. Toph is like a big buff dude, Well, that's because nobody wants to admit that they lost a fight to a blind little girl. So they kind of, foil of what they want, like give their own false perspective on it. And the other thing about with like the spirit world is how the avatar, it reflects like how the avatar is like feeling in the like spirit world. So for example, Aang's spirit world, when he's like avatar, in that show you see how it's very dark and gloom and not very vivid colors. That's because he lost his like entire air nomad nation to the fire nation, because they killed them all to try to kill the avatar, but they didn't succeed. And then in Legend of Korra, it's more vivid because she has more spritefulness to her. And that's where you kind of understand of how it just affects one. Just looking at my notes. And another thing is kind of how certain, like, so there are 4 line trails in like Legend of Korra you see. And each one gives like the bending to like, gives the airbenders, firebenders, earthbenders, and waterbenders. And in that, when you give the bending, then you got Sky Bison who teach airbending to perfect it more. Badger moles who help to perfect like earthbending, like with Toph. And then dragons who help to like, perfect the like rightfulness and righteousness of why like, firebend is, because you want to have it with more, understand the beauty, where Aang thought like entirely that firebend is just disaster and brings destruction no matter what, but it also has its like moments of natural beauty. And then for like waterbending, it's like these 2 fishes that kind of hold the spirit. And when Zhao the Conqueror kills one of them, how it really just takes everything off, because to become a fully realized just person in general, like you don't even have to be the avatar, like just to know all the bendings, just to understand the different concepts of the bendings. Because like, if you have like where you understand like maybe one, instead of like becoming a full circle of understanding it all, you become rigid and you become very destructive, and where you understand all of like the elements and all of like their own like sides of the story, makes you a well-rounded person. So you see that within Zuko when he has like his fight against Azula to prove he's the rightful like Fire Lord, because he proves that he knows it, and he shows in his like fighting styles. And some of these have some martial arts like aspects of how, like the fighting styles it does, because it shows to represent this is clearly as an airbender who like show his form of a move. Just gonna take a quick look at some of my stuff, because I believe I don't have much else. And I just found this show very interesting because I watched it as a kid and I've been interested in a lot. And I think about how some things like change from one series to the next. So in Avatar: The Last Airbender, you have the White Lotus. And there's people who hold out credibility and are masters, and they have earned that because you've seen throughout the show how they've proved they're the masters, like King Boomy, Uncle Iroh. There's like a northern waterbender master. I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's Master Paku. And then there's like from the Fire Nation, and how they just unite, even though like they don't care about, just teaching to one specific nation, like just Fire Nation people, just Earth, like Kingdom people. They teach it to everyone because everyone has the right to learn it. Everyone has the right to wield it for the use of good. And they combine together for good when they understand that the Fire Nation, the Fire Lord, who's going to become the Phoenix King, and the intention that he's just going to burn the world is because they can unite together. And in the next series for Legend of Korra, how it kind of dies down and how things can change throughout time when it's like perceived as different, when you understand that some people change and some people don't always do what is great. So I definitely just enjoyed, again, looking at like the show, and just because I've watched it since I was a kid and understand its own aspects. Well, thank you for your time, and you guys have a great day. I don't know how to end this, so have a good time. No, not gonna end like that, but yeah. Do what I do, even it ain't for you.